upper hall, they see a teenage boy in a pool of blood. Cries out, my God, they killed the son. Here's the story of a boy called Trey, the boy George Zimmerman shot in shame. Another coward with a gun, who knows just how the deed was done. But on that night he put an end to Trayvon's world. Trey's body lying there, the police see, and there's the shooter standing around sheepishly. I had to do it, he says, he threw up his hands. I was only standing my ground, I know you'll understand. I have my reason, he says, and he stops. I have nothing but respect for the cops. So he rode up front with the cops, and they rode from the scene with no lights flashing. You know, something just ain't right. Back when Trayvon was just walking through town, a neighborhood watch started to follow him around. Police dispatch told Zimmerman to hold his ground. Trey had no idea what kind of shit was about to go down when George pulled him over to the side of the road. Just like the time before and the time before that, in America that's just the way things go. If you're black, you might as well not show up on the street unless you wanna draw the heat. Well, Zimmerman had a bloody nose and a rap for the cops. Said I was on patrol and saw him out prowling around. I asked what he was doing and he hit me in the face. Well, clearly he was from the wrong side of the gates, and all the officers just nodded their heads. Didn't give a damn that Trey was dead. They let George Zimmerman go free without a charge, though he was guilty of taking someone's life with his own hand. On the scene, then the third rolls in. Finally tried to revive Trey, then declared he was dead. Well, Trey couldn't cry out with one dying sigh. They waited too long, well, why even try? This is the story of a boy called Trey, the boy George Zimmerman shot in shame. Another coward with a gun, knows just how the deed was done. But on that night he put an end to Trayvon's world. A month and a half later the charges finally came. George Zimmerman's on the internet fighting for his name. Special prosecutor's verdict changes the game. Second-degree murder squarely places the blame. What more at all could the shooter say? Turned himself in on the very next day. What have the phone recordings found? It was Trayvon who stood his ground on that night. Don't forget who started the fight. George said these assholes always get away. His lawyers took a chance and made a break. It was clear it was a dead-end job and that they all were yellow. They couldn't keep him out of jail, so they abandoned the fellow. Thought they were doing society a favor. That son of a bitch is brave and getting braver. They ought to put his ass in stir, to put the blame of Trayvon's murder on him, and the light bulb's growing dim. George Zimmerman's a man who couldn't take a punch, but went looking for trouble anyway, and it didn't take much. It's my work, he'd say, and I do without pay. I'm sure to make sure these assholes don't get away. Up in gated paradise, with a Lone Ranger complex, he didn't think twice. And now he's waiting for a trial, but he was bailed out from the jailhouse. A man with a gun ain't nothing but a mouse. Jeb Bush's law marked the outcome in advance. This trial is a pig circus, justice has no chance. Miami fire chief blames parents from the slums. The web calls George Zimmerman a revolutionary bum. Is this what you call a community figure? No one doubted that he pulled the trigger. This is about the right to own a gun. The DA said he was the one, but the law supports his deed. Real change is what we need. Soon Zimmerman will be tried. He incriminated himself, he's already testified. Well, Trayvon's family, they all cried, and the newspapers, they all went along for the ride. How can the life of a young man be in the palm of some fool's hand? To see an unarmed child blamed couldn't help but make me feel ashamed to live in a land where justice is a game. Vigilantes with their guns and their lies are free to hassle strangers and people they despise. George Zimmerman belongs in a 10-foot cell. The politicians and lawmakers as well. 'Cause there's the story of a boy called Trey. The story's happening every day. Imagine a world without the gun. Put George in a prison cell, 'cause on that night he put an end to Trayvon's world. Pistol shots ring out in the Sanford night. Someone called 911 from the upper hall. They see a teenage boy in a pool of blood. Cries out, my God, they killed the son. Here's the story of a boy called Trey. The boy George Zimmerman shot in shame. Another coward with a gun.